Okay, today we're going to be learning Yevamot Daf Lamed Chet. I'll just remind everyone that I already put up the Shiur for Pesach for the first day of Pesach, and not for the second day. That we'll do live for those who aren't keeping 2 days of Yantif. But the first day is up already. If anybody wants to listen to the second day, it's up from last cycle. So you can just search Yevamot 41 and you can find it. We also sent out links to people if you're on our WhatsApp groups. Anyway, so you can listen to 40 and 41 early in advance if you would like. Okay, by the way, anyone who wants to get ahead, most of the shiurim from last time are up online. You know, if it was like a Shabbat or something, I didn't teach then, but you can usually find the dapim. If you ever want to get ahead, you can find last cycle. You can find that on the site, just search by daf and you should be able to get it. Okay, today's daf is sponsored by Elisa Hartstein in honor of her oldest daughter, Eliana, finishing her army service today. Also in tremendous appreciation for all our chayalim and chayalot, present and past, who make our lives here in Israel possible every single day. Today's daf is sponsored by Mona and David Schwartz and family in loving memory of Mary Horowitz, Miriam Etelbat Aaron Alevi, and Miro Meltzer on her 28th year site. She was a woman whose home exemplified Hachnasat Orchim. And today's daf is sponsored by Medina Korn in loving memory of her maternal grandmother, Betty Egert Landsman, Bela Tobabat Avraham Aryeh Vitzurot Dvora, and her paternal grandfather, Jacob Kachin, Yaakov and Meir Zev V'Malka Rasha on their 40th year at site. Though we lost them too soon and did not have an official Shiva period, that snowy Erev Pesach in 1982, their legacy of the centrality of family, commitment to community, tradition, and so much more has stayed with us all these years. Yehi Zichram Baruch. Okay, we're going to get started with our daf now. We're in the middle. It's kind of like being in the middle of Yevamot, and all of a sudden we're in Baba Batra. Okay, we're basically in the middle of number one, monetary law cases that have almost nothing to do with what we've been talking about until now, and laws of inheritance. Okay, so we'll do a quick review of. We have a long daf, so I don't want to spend too much time, but I feel like we need to just review the last few cases that we dealt with. So we have this child who was born from a union of her first husband died without children. Then she got married. She did yibum right away with the brother. And now we don't, it turns out she was pregnant. We don't know, was she pregnant from before? Was she pregnant now? So we have a doubt as to who this child is. So now one of the main issues becomes inheritance laws. So if we had the first case was he comes with the yabam to get the property of his dead father. So we don't know, is it the father or not? So he claims it's my father and I get all his money. And the Yabam claims, no, it was my brother who died without children. You're my son. And therefore I get all of his possessions. That was the first case. We said, Yachloku, they split 50-50 because no one has a better claim than the other. What if the Safek, the guy who's not sure, he's always called the Safek, the guy we don't know, was he born to this father or was he born to that father? He comes together with the sons of the Yabam to claim rights to his father's property. Okay, let's say the brother died soon after, and now nobody took the possessions of the father. So he claims, I'm the son of my father. And therefore I get it. They claim, no, you're our brother, right? And therefore, B'nai Yabam, right? You're our brother, and you just get a portion of it. In other words, really, all the property of the first husband goes to our father's estate, and you split it with us and you just get a portion. Okay, so what did we say? First, they thought to say it's a classic case of they have definitive claim and he has no definitive claim, like in a case where we don't know at all who his father is. It's like, let's say after divorce, they got married right away and we have no idea. And basically they don't have any rights. He doesn't have any rights. But then they said, no, this case is actually a little different because he does have rights to something, right? Because either way he gets, okay? So, he says, in this case, they're both really Suffolk, okay? And therefore the law is different. Then they brought up a third case, which is what if they want to have rights to the Yabam's money? He comes and says, I'm a brother with you. And they say, you belong to the other guy. So in that case, that's more similar to a regular case of not waiting 3 months. And then basically, they can say to him, as long as he doesn't have a definitive claim, they can say, go prove that you're our brother. You don't get anything of the Yabam's money because you really belong to the first guy, right? They can basically claim whatever they want. As long as he doesn't have any proof, he's stuck. Now, the last case, I think we'll start with this one because this leads in to a whole big discussion, which is Safek u'bnei Yabam shaba'u lachlok b'nechsei Yabam. Okay, now we have he and the bnei Yabam come to get the nechsei Yabam, but Libatar de palig Yabam b'nichsei mitan. In other words, we already did, this is back to case number one, we already split the money of the first guy, the first husband, 50-50. Now comes the son, the suffix, with a good claim. He says, listen, well, first we're going to hear what they say. He wants to get part of that money back, that 50% that they took from who he's going to claim as his father. So the Bnei Abam say, look, this money went to our father. If you want rights to it, you have to prove that you're, just like the previous case, that you have rights to this. Comes the Safek, and he says, either way you look at it, if I'm your brother, I get part of that 50% that he took from me way back when, because now I'm his son, I get his 50%. And Ibar Mitanu, if I'm the son of the dead guy, you claim, okay, fine, I'm not your brother. You're not going to give me money. Well, if you claim I belong to the first guy, then Havli Palga de Palga Vuchan Badayu, then I get the portion that your father took. I get the 50% that your father took. So basically what he's saying is, if you want to claim that I'm not your brother and I don't get any of the money of your father, well, then give me at least the 50% that your father took from me before. Because if your father took this 50% from me before, claiming I was his son and I wasn't the son of that guy and he took 50%, then that comes right back to me. If you're going to treat me not as the Abam's son and don't give me any of his inheritance, then I at least get back that 50%. Okay, so that's what's going on here. He has a good claim. So the question is, can he get rights back to that 50%? Or based on his claim, get a portion of the inheritance? And yes, prove that, even though he hasn't proven he's their brother. So there's a machlok. Rabbi Abba Amar Kam Dina. Rabbi Abba says, listen, what's done was done. The 50% was split up before. They got 50-50. That's done. We can't go undo that again. So he really has no claim. He's basically claiming rights to the inheritance of the Abam, and he has no proof that he's his son, so he can't get anything. But Rabbi Yirmiyah Amal Hadar Din. Rabbi Yirmiyah says, that's a good idea. We can redo it now. And at this point, he has a definitive claim. He either can get the 50% that the Abam took, or he can get a percentage of his inheritance. Okay, because he's either one or the other. You can't treat him like nothing, right? Like, oh, well, you're not your first father's son, and you're not the Abam's son, and you're going to get nothing. That's not fair. So he has no problem with undoing the original law, the original judgment. So now this whole thing of, are we allowed to undo something and go back to some earlier time period and redo it? Or do we say whatever was done was done? That seems to be a machloka between Admon and Chachamim in a totally different case. Okay, it seems like we're going to connect their machlokot, their opinions, to another machloket. In the end, we're going to reject it and say the cases are different. But here's the case. Ditnan. Okay, you went abroad, you had a field, and it was surrounded by other fields. And then you went abroad. Now, you were in a field in the middle of a big circle of fields around you. And you had a path, okay, that was your property, that you were able to walk out of your fields through someone else's path. That was yours. You owned it. What happens is you went away, and when you came back, you didn't remember anymore where your path was. So now what do? Admon Amar, you pick the shortest path and you say, that's my path. Because what's going to happen? You're going to go through this path. You're going to ruin the person's property if you're always going through. So look, you had a path. You take the shortest path and done. Chachamim omrim, okay, this is very funny. They're kind of making a joke. Yikach lo derech b'mea money. Okay, you have to pay 100 money. Okay, you have to pay 100 in order to get through. Okay, you have to pay your way. Oh, yifrach bavir. If you don't want to pay, fly, okay? Fly over. You're obviously making a joke here. People don't know how to fly, but, right, days before helicopters or anything. Basically, if you can get over without touching their property, no problem. Otherwise, you have to pay your way. Now, Hevinam Bele Rabbanan. So the first thing they say is, they asked the rabbis a question. Shapir Kamar Admon. I don't get it. Why didn't you agree with Admon? If you had a path, take the shortest path. It was yours. Why do we make you pay? So he said, you didn't understand the case. The case is, it's not that there was one person around him whose field was surrounding his, and therefore he had a definite claim on the property. It's it's a case where each side was a different person's field, which means like the brothers can claim, right? You have to prove that you're our brother here also. You have to prove that your path was in my property. Each one can say to him, go prove it. And he's stuck. That's why. So now they say, wait, if that's the case, well, then Admon makes no sense. So that can't be. So Rav is going to explain it. I'm a Rav. He's going to say, look, if 4 people own the field originally, and then 4 people bought it from them, or alternatively, 4 people own the field now, but they all bought it from one person, meaning originally when the guy left and went abroad, it was only owned by one person, and now it's owned by 4 people. Either which way, if it's owned by 4 people now, it doesn't matter what was the state before, he has no claim, and that's obviously not the case. In that case, everybody agrees that the fields right now are owned by 4 people. He has no claim. Because each person could say, it's not my field, it's not my field, it's not my field, and everyone agreed with Chachamim, he would have to pay his way. But what's the machlokes? It's a case where originally it was owned by 4 people, now it's owned by 1 person. Why is that relevant? Doesn't matter what was passed and what was done. Right now, it's me versus you. And I clearly have a path through you, even though before it was through 4 people. Now it's through you, and you have to give it to me. Okay, so now Admon basically is saying, even though originally, now let's connect it to the previous, even though originally I didn't have a claim, now I do have a claim. So we can reevaluate based on the new circumstances. That's basically what Admon says. So that fits with, we can change the law, right? Based on the new circumstances. Now that I have a claim either which way, that's Rabbi Yirmiyah. Rabbanan, so the Rabbanan Savre de Amarle, he can say to him like this. Ish shatat shatat. The one guy who owns this field could say, listen, if you're quiet and you don't, right? I won't get into what this sounds like, but if you're quiet and you just, shut your mouth, then I'll give you a good price. But if you start making a big deal with me and you don't want to pay any money, well, I can ruin you. Okay, how so? Elo. I could just return all my 4 properties to their original owners. At that point, go have fun, right? Try to prove your claim to each of these 4 guys and you have no claim. So what he's basically saying is, better, don't make a big issue about this. I'll give it to you for a reasonable price. If not, you'll be really messed up and you won't be able to get it at all, right? You'll have to pay full price to one of these 4 people and they can basically charge you whatever they want because you have no claim. So that's why it's okay. So now, according to Rabbanan, how does this connect? What Rabbanan is saying is, right, the original law stands. Okay, it's not exactly the same, and one can argue, but it's basically like saying, let's put it back to its original state where it was owned by 4 people and you have no claim, so now you have no claim. Okay, so it's like saying Kamdina. So Lema Rabbi Abba Amar Rabbanan, that Kamdina, right? And Rabbi Yirmiyah, who said, we changed it, right? We can reevaluate, so it holds like Adam. So Amar Lecha Rabbi Abba. Rabbi Abba says no. Or again, this isn't Rabbi Abba. Amar Lecha always means we're putting words in his mouth. But Rabbi Abba can say the following. And this is how we're going to disconnect them from the other opinions. Rabbi Abba is going to say, Anada Amar Afilu Ka'admo. Even though I think in this case, Kamdina, in our case, right, that he can't start reevaluating. In this case, I would hold like the rabbis, though. I'm sorry, I would hold like, I would hold like Admo, that he does have a claim. Why? What Admon is saying is, right now, I have a definite claim. I'm in the middle. You own all 4 fields. I definitely have a path through there. So he has, as Rashi puts it, a tanach bari. He has a definitive claim against this guy right now in the present. But in our case, remember, the kid who we don't know, is he born to this father or that father, doesn't have a definitive claim. What's definitive about his claim is he kind of says, I have some sort of rights to this money, but by no definitive claim. He can't say, I am the father here, I am the son of this father and I get this. I am the father. No, he doesn't know what his identity is, and therefore he has no definitive claim. So because he has no definitive claim, and he doesn't even know exactly how much he's claiming from him, because it could be, part of the inheritance. It could be the 50% that the father took from him. So he doesn't have any definitive claim, whereas this guy definitely has a definitive claim. I had a path here, and you're the only guy who owns it right now, so I definitely get a path through you. So that's why Abba will say it there, but won't necessarily say it here. Rabbi Yirmiyah, now we're going to do the flip. Rabbi Yirmiyah, who says we can reevaluate the circumstances, would say, but not in this case. I'll hold like the rabbis that we can actually revert back to the original situation. I'll say like the rabbis who basically said that the original law stands, even though in our case, I think that we can change things. Why? Remember, the original law stands means it was originally owned by 4 people and you wouldn't have had a claim. Well, that's because in this case, he can actually technically revert it back to the original circumstance. He could say, I'm giving my shtarot back. It is owned by 4 people and you're in trouble now. And that's why he can actually revert the situation back. Obviously, in this case, the Yabam already died, right? And they already got their money. You can't revert back and say, well, let's redivide the money that was already divided. You can't do that because it's already a done deal, right? In this case, right, he can, so let's just finish. I think I didn't read farther enough. In that case, he can say to him, if you're quiet, be quiet, in lo mahadrin ashtar lamarai v'lo matzah l'shtuei din v'adayu, and you'll have nothing to do. You'll have no claim. But in our case, you can't revert back to the original circumstance. The money was already divided. The Abam is dead. You can't turn back time. Okay. In the first case, you can't turn in the case with the property. You can turn back time because you can basically revert it back to what it was then. So basically, we tried to say that maybe their machloket has to do with this. In the end, we can't prove it. Now we have some more cases of doubt. Safek the Abam shabao lachlok b'nichsei saba. Now we have the grandfather. The grandfather dies, and who's still alive? Well, the first husband's dead, okay? But the son claims he gets the father's property. He claims, I was born to the first person. The Abam is still alive. He claims, I get all the money because you're my son, in which case I'm the only inheritor of my father because my brother died. So let's read it inside. So, Safek the Abam shabal lachlok b'nichsei saba. They want to get their grandfather's inheritance. Safek amal. The suffix says, Hi Gavar Bar Mitanahu, right? This guy, meaning myself, is the son of the dead guy. Upalga didihu, and I get 50% of the grandfather's inheritance because I represent my father's family. Yabam amal, at barai didiyat, you're my son. V'leit lach v'lomidi, and you have no claim because I get all the inheritance because there's only one son in this case. I get everything. Your father's dead. He had no children. The guy you claim is your father is dead. He had no children because you're my son, and therefore I get everything. So hava yavam vadai v'safek safek ve'ein safek motzi midei vadai. This is a term we're going to deal with a lot today, which is the one, and we've basically been dealing with it until now, which is the one who has a doubtful claim doesn't get anything. Okay, if someone has a definitive claim and someone has a doubtful claim, the definitive claim gets to win. So therefore, his definitive claim is I'm the son. He's clearly the son of his father. So that's a definitive claim. The son who claims I'm the son of the first, the brother who died, doesn't have a definitive claim, he gets nothing. Let's say the grandfather dies after the Yabam is already dead. So no one's alive anymore in that generation. So who's left? The Yabam, the sons of the Yabam and this Safek guy. So now, Safek Amar Hu Gavar Bar Mitanu Upal Didiu. I get 50% because I'm representing my father, who I claim is my father. You're just one of us and you get a portion with us. Okay, we're going to do the calculation now based on the fact that there's, let's say, 2 brothers, 2 sons of the Yabam, 2 legit, clear sons, and one about the, one is the Safek guy. Okay, you're asking, did we learn something in the beginning of it's Bava Metzia with the Talit? Yes, it's very similar to where everybody claims, I have this Talit is mine, I found it, this Talit is mine, I found it, we split it 50-50. That's Mamona Mutaba Safek Hoki. That's right, that was like the first case where no one has any definitive claim, or both have a definitive claim, right? There's all different options. There's Vadai Vadai, Safek, or which both are the same, we're going to split it 50-50, or we have, Safek and Vadai. Okay, so now this is all like, again, I said it's Bava Batra because Bava Batra deals with inheritance law, but yes, it's also Bava Metzia, which is all sorts of money cases that we don't know what to do with them. So Safek, right, what's nice about Yevamot is so far, yes, we've been involved very seriously and heavy into Yevamot cases, but within it, right, we've had breaks with stories, and now we're getting breaks, a little bit of a break, it's kind of confusing, but a break with Dina Mamono, which is totally different, right? The financial part of it. Safek, so now what happens? So he says, on my father's, I get 50% of the grandfather's inheritance, because again, the grandfather's inheritance is going to be split between the children based on who your father was. You get your father's portion, you get your father's portion. So he says, I get 50%. They say, what do you mean? You're our brother, right? They use this claim, obviously, each time to support, right? Either you are our brother, you're not our brother, right? They can say whatever they want. So, right, and because why can they say whatever they want? Because until he proves otherwise, they can claim anything they want. You just get a third, basically, right? Assume there's two, and then he gets a third of the property. Palga, so now what's the law? So he claims 50%, and they claim you get 33%. So now the way they look at it is very interesting. They say, first we have to figure out who admits to the other how much. So he says, the suffix, I get 50%. That means he agrees that they get the other 50%. So paga de kamode lehu shaka. They can already take their 50% that he agrees. 33%, the third, right? They agree, that he owns. So he gets, that's the next, tilta, a third, de kamode le shakil. They agree that he at least gets a third. This is why you had to give the case where they're two and he's the third. So they agreed to a third. He agreed that they get 50%. So he gets a third. They get 50%. What's left? A sixth. So pashlu danka, a sixth is left. That sixth is exactly, we have no idea. So we split that sixth in half. They get half and he gets half. Okay. And that's what we do in this situation. Two last cases. Saba v'yabam b'nichsei safek. If the safek dies, and now the question is who gets his property. So the grandfather claims, well, he's the son of my son, the first guy who died, and therefore I get it because the Saba inherits, the father inherits if they have no sons. So he gets it. And the brother claims, what are you talking about? He's my son and I inherit him. So we're going to say it in a minute, that is mamona mutabas safek v'cholkim. This is clearly safek. They split it 50-50. Or Saba v'safek b'nichsei yabam. Or if the Yabam dies, and again, the son claims, I'm his son. And the grandfather claims, no, you're the son of the first guy. And this is just my son and I get all of his possessions because he had no kids. This would have to be a case where the Yabam had no other kids. Okay, this would be a different case than the ones we've been discussing. Here, the Yabam has no children other than him. He claims I'm the one son. And the grandfather claims he has no sons and therefore I inherit him. So in both those cases, yachloku, we split it 50-50. Okay, now moving on. This is also going to be kind of confusing. I hope you're bearing with me. Okay. Now, before we start, I want to just remind you about the bookmarks, okay? The bookmarks, one of the main reasons I did bookmarks was because of something we're going to learn in today's daf, because it's something that when I learn, I always get confused. What's the difference between these two things? So I said, I'm going to make bookmarks and then we'll have it in front of us. If I get confused, then you'll get confused as well. Okay. It's at the very bottom of the bookmark and at the top of the one on the second side, okay? This is what's called background. A woman comes into a marriage with property. Okay. Could be she has property. Generally, women didn't own property. Okay. And I'll just preface this by saying that in the late 1800s, there was a case in America where a woman wanted to be a lawyer and she was told that she couldn't be a property lawyer or she couldn't practice law because she doesn't have rights to her own land and she can't represent other people if she doesn't even have rights to her own land. And they wouldn't, and she fought it. I think in the end she won, but it was a fight. And one of the claims they made against her, I can't remember now if she won or not, but it was basically saying, you don't have rights to property, so you can't be a lawyer. So if you think that this sounds strange, just think about the fact that in the late 1800s in America, it was still the case. Women in general did not own property. So therefore, a woman comes into marriage. Let's say she got a gift from her father. Let's say her father died, had no sons, and she inherits. So, or he decided to give her for whatever reason, right? You could do that, right, with Yerusha. So now, if that's the case, we just discussed that. So if that's the case, she comes into marriage with property. There's two different kinds of property that she can have. And the husband, while she's married, the husband has rights to her property. What does that mean? So there's different ways you can have rights to something. You can have just payroll, just the proceeds, or you can have rights to actually the goof of the field, okay, meaning the value of it. So now what's the difference? So there's two kinds of nichasim that she comes in with. First of all, the first thing you have to understand is she gets a ketubah. A ketubah is, I promise to give you X amount of money in the event that I die or I divorce you. That's how the husband commits to the wife. Plus, there's Tosefet Ktuba. Sometimes he adds money. That's all money that goes to her in the event that he dies or divorces her. In Yibum, it gets a little tricky. Okay, and we're going to see this inside. In Yibum, what happens? By the way, until she demands her Ktuba money, she gets mizono, like a stipend, a monthly stipend, or however it works, for food, okay, to support her. Then once she claims her Ktuba money, which is a lump sum, she can no longer claim mizono, okay? It's either you take your lump sum or you can take this monthly thing until you take your lump sum. So now, we're going to get into all sorts of things of that. When does it end? What if she gets married to someone else? Whatever. We're going to get into all that later. But the main thing to understand is, in addition to what's written in the Ktuba of that, she also puts what's called Nichse Tzon Barsel into the Ktuba. This is property that she comes into the marriage with. And she basically, the husband has rights to it. He assumes responsibility for it throughout the marriage. And she'll get it back in the event of death or divorce of the husband. Okay, if the husband divorces her or he dies. Why is it called Tzon Barsel? Because she puts it in at whatever value. Say it's worth 100, whatever at that time. Now, if it appreciates in value, the appreciation goes to the husband and she gets it back at 100. If it depreciates, he has to return her the item at the value it was at the time of the wedding. So basically, he's fully responsible for it, which means that, again, he could get some, if it increases in value, it goes to him. But if it decreases, he has to pay her at the end. The money that goes to her is the value of whatever it was when it went into the marriage. Nichse Malug is different. Nichse Malug, okay, you can read this all in if you don't remember them later, you can read it all in the bookmark. If you don't have the bookmarks, we're going to do a new, first of all, I know some people, the mail system obviously isn't great. Some people didn't get it. So if you didn't get it, please email us. A bunch of people have emailed. We'll send out more after Pesach, and we'll do a new ordering after Pesach so that anyone who didn't get order can order as well. Nichse Malug are property. Okay, the way I think of it usually, the way I remember this is it's heirlooms, things that belong to her family that basically they go into the marriage. He can use them and benefit from them. But she gets them exactly as they are, meaning if they depreciated or appreciate, it doesn't matter. She gets the item at the value it is right now. It doesn't matter if it went up in value, went down in value. It's basically a family heirloom. So of course, he's not going to get the gains of that, or he's not going to have to pay her if it went down in value. Okay, that's her family heirloom. It's going to be important because you're going to understand it's more likely in an event of death of the woman, let's say, who's going to get the heirlooms? It'll go back to her family. The stuff that's in the ketubah is going to more likely go to him. Because what's ketubah money? Ketubah money is I'll pay you in the event of death or divorce. What if she dies? Then he keeps the money. So that's going to be the split between these different items. Okay, that's some background. Now, our tricky part is we're now going to talk about. So now I'll just mention a certain Mishnah that is important to know from Ketubot. This Mishnah, by the way, appears in Ketubot as well, which is when a person gets engaged. And while she's engaged, she gets inheritance. Okay, her father dies, let's say, and gives her something. What's the status of that, right? If it's during the marriage, so he's going to have access to it, which means, by the way, that during marriage, she can't sell any of this property. It's not hers to sell. But if it falls to her when she's engaged, there's a debate between Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel. Beit Shammai says she can sell it because he has no rights to anything when she's engaged yet. He doesn't get the payroll till she's married. We saw that with Zman in Kiddushin. Right? That he doesn't get the payroll, the proceeds. Only when they're married does he get the proceeds. So Beit Shammai says she can sell it all she wants if she wants at that point, because she's not yet married. Beit Hillel says no. Erusin already, she can't sell it. If she does, it's okay. The sale goes through, but she shouldn't sell it ideally because he has rights to the payroll down the road. So they're already engaged. She shouldn't sell it. So that's the background for our case. Now, what's our case now? The Mishnah says, Shomeret Yabam, Shenaflu Nechasim. What if she's not engaged, like we just said, and there's a machloket between them, but her husband died, and now she falls to Yibum, to this guy. This is all about Zika, but it's Zika, not in a marriage level in terms of, are you married, right? Are you connected, arayot? Now it's Zika in terms of what are his financial rights to her stuff? Because remember, he inherits the brothers. He inherits everything of the brothers. But he's only a Shomeret Yabam. He hasn't done Yibum yet, right? We're in this in-between stage where he's supposed to do Yibum, but hasn't yet. That's when we say there's Zika between. How strong is Zika for financial relationship? So they say, if a Shomeret Yabam, Naflula Nechasim. So while she's in this in-between stage, she inherits property. Modim Beit Shammai uBeit Hillel shemocheret v'notenet b'kayam. In that case, even Beit Hillel will agree he has no rights to it. She can sell it all she wants. Meta, but if she dies before she does Yibum, now what happens to all her money? This goes back to the Ketubah issue, right? So Maya aseh b'Ketubata. So what happens to her Ketubah money? Who gets it? And b'nechasim hanichnasim v'yotzim ima. This is the nichsei tzom barzel. Okay, you'll see the words that I'm using don't appear here in the text exactly, but the nechasim hanichnasim v'yotzim ima are the nichsei tzom barzel. And I'm sorry, I just said it wrong. Nichnasim v'yotzim ima are her heirlooms. These are things that she gets. The Ketubah includes the Ketubah money and the nichsei tzom barzel, the ones that he assumes responsibility for. They're written in the Ketubah. The nichsei malug are not written in the Ketubah. So what happens to her Ketubah money, which includes the nichsei tzom barzel and the nichsei malug, her heirloom stuff? So Beit Shammai omrim yachloku yorshei habal im yorshei ha'av. They split it 50-50. The ones who inherit the husband, which is the Yabam, okay, the Yabam, and her family, they're going to split it. Now it sounds like Beit Shammai is talking about everything, the Ketubah money and the heirlooms. We're going to see later, they're going to have to explain the mission in a bit of a different way. But right now, it sounds like everything. The property, the rechush stays in her, whoever's possession it is. So that means the Ketubah money, in whose possession is it? The Yabam, because right, if she dies, it's true the husband died and theoretically she's supposed to get the Ketubah. But in this case, since there's a Yabam, she doesn't get the Ketubah, it gets pushed off. So that stays where it is. And Ketubah, b'chezkat yorshei habal. So that's what they explain. The Ketubah is in his possession, the Yabam. But the nechasim v'yotzim ima, right? The heirlooms clearly go to her family because they're heirlooms, right? That's why I call them heirlooms. It's just an easy way to get it, right? So they go b'chezkat yorshei ha'av, meaning they go back to her family. So Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai disagree about this. Knasa, now there's a separate case, which we're not going to deal with much today. If he marries her, harei kishto l'chotavar, okay, in the case, right, not where she died, but they actually got married, then she becomes his wife for all intents and purposes. The only difference is, and this is what I said before, the Ketubah remains the responsibility of the first husband. That means that when it comes time, if the second husband dies or divorces her, the Yabam, then she can't demand the Ketubah money from his property. It'll come from the property of the original husband. Okay? Meaning if for some reason the original husband's property had nothing, right? Then I guess I'm not sure exactly what would happen in that case. But the main thing is he doesn't sign a new Ketubah with her. We keep the same Ketubah and it goes back to his, now obviously the brother inherits the other brother. So it's a bit of a question what the relevance of this is. Anyway, we're not on it now, so we're going to focus on the first part of the mission. So now we have an issue because the Reisha, we're now going to have a big question that's going to have 4 answers. We'll get to at least 2 today, maybe 3. The 4th one is in tomorrow's daf, which is, Mashna Reisha de lo pligi, Mashna Sefer de pligi. What's the difference between the first part of the Mishnah and the second part of the Mishnah? The first part of the Mishnah, they all agree that if she's alive, right, and she's Shomeret Yabam and Nechasim fall to her possession, everyone agrees they're hers 100%. The second part starts distinguishing between different types of property, and there's a machloka Beit Shammai Beit Hillel, and which ones go where, what do we do? So why is there a difference? What's the difference? So Amar Ula's going to do what we call a ukimta. He's going to say, well, they didn't tell you everything, but this is what the Mishnah is all about. Reisha de nafla kashi arusa, v'seif nafla kashi nesua. There's a difference in the first part and the second part between not only is she alive or dead, but what was her relationship with the first husband? Was she engaged to him or was she married to him? The first case where we say she has full rights to the property is because she was only engaged to the first husband. And already then there was a debate about whether he had the proper right, he could do something or not. Now that she was only engaged and she falls to even from engagement, her connection to the Abam is less, and therefore she has rights to it according to everybody. Because Savar Ula, Zikat Arusa Ose Safek Arusa. Now this is where we get to Zika. The Zika of a woman from Erusin doesn't make her as if she's engaged to the next guy, because if she was engaged to him, we'd have the same machloket. We have Beit Shammai Beit Hillel about a woman who's engaged and property falls to her. But this is going to drop it down a level. When she was engaged to the man. He died. She falls to the Yabam from engagement. Her status is Safek engaged. Safek engaged, we allow her to sell anything that falls into her inheritance during that time. The Seifa is talking about when we already have a machloket Beit Shammai Beit Hillel and we start saying that we split up the property, it's not fully hers, doesn't go fully to her family. That's a case of From Nisuin, she was married to the first guy, and Zikat Nisua Oses Safek Nisua. We treat her as maybe she's married. And that's why we have the split, or Beit Hillel says it goes by who's got the possessions. If she was fully married to the Abam, he would get everything, but she's considered Safek Nisua. So now, how do we know that this is the case? So we're going to now prove it. Basically, this is similar to what I just said. Zikat Arusa says Safek Arusa. How do we know it's only Safek Arusa, not Vadai Arusa, that she's not definitively married to him? She's only, remember, she didn't marry him yet, but remember, we've talked many times. How strong is Zika? So they're now suggesting you might have thought it's like she's for sure engaged to him, even though he hasn't done it yet. Well, if you treat her as a definite engaged person, well, then Beit Hillel would not agree that she can sell the property at her will because of this Mishnah that I mentioned before, that the Gemara is going to quote right now. Money falls into her possession. She inherits something or gets a gift while she's engaged. Beit Shammai omrim timkor, Beit Hillel omrim lo timkor. Beit Hillel says she can't sell it. Therefore, it can't be that the first part of the Mishnah treats her as a vadai arusa, because otherwise Beit Hillel would not have said you could sell it. The Mishnah continues and says, the elu ve'elu modim shemachav and atna kayam. They both agree that in the end, if she did sell it, Beit Hillel says, don't sell property that you got as a gift. If you did, it would be valid, but don't do it. And our Mishnah says you can do it lechatchila, right? If you wanted to ab initio. So from here you can infer the zika of an arusa, right? A woman who fell from engagement to yibum is only safek arusa, and that's why they all agree. Now we have to understand the second part. The second case is where the Beit Shammai Beit Hillel have a machloket. Vadai nisua Beit Shammai omrim. Zika nisua usesafek nisua. Right? So the zika of a married woman, she was married to the first husband, now she falls to yibum, is only considered safek nisua. She's maybe married. Okay, so how do we know she's not definitely married? Because Beit Shammai omrim yachloku yorshea abal im yorshea av. Beit Shammai says they split it 50-50. Now, if she's vadai married, you wouldn't split it 50-50. How do we know this? The Hatnan, it says in the Mishnah there. Naflula nechasim misheniseit. If the property falls to her when she's married, if she sells property that fell to her when she's married, she has no rights to do that. The husband can come and say, give me back my land, or give me back whatever it was that she sold. She has no rights, even though it's her property in the end, right? She owns the body of the property, right? He owns the payroll, the proceeds. Doesn't matter. She can't sell it while she's married. Okay. If I get a gift while I'm married, my husband has rights to it by law. Okay. I can't sell it unless he approves of it, but I can't sell it on my own. So therefore, from here you can infer the husband has full rights to it while they're married, then obviously you wouldn't split it 50-50 with the nechsei abal, and with the nechsei av with her family, and therefore Shema Mina must be the Mishnah holds zikat nisua says safek nisua. Okay, that was pretty simple. Basically, what his distinction is from erusin versus from nisuin, and then each law is she's safek in that case, and that's why everyone says what they say. But Amalei Rabba says that doesn't make any sense. That the difference between the first part and the second part is arusa or nisua, because the beginning of the Mishnah discussed a case where she was alive, and the second part discussed a case where she was dead, and we were talking about the property after death and not the proceeds, right? So he said, if your whole distinction is from erusin or nisuin and who has rights, you should have just given a case where she was alive where she was alive and we're talking about payroll. In other words, she was alive and she was engaged to the first guy. Then we say, well, safek engagement, she has full rights, and she's alive and she came from marriage. And then she has no rights to sell it, or depending on or how we get to the case. But if that's the case, then the Mishnah wouldn't have distinguished between her being alive and her being dead. It doesn't make any sense. So therefore, Rav is going to choose an explanation which distinguishes between being alive and being dead. And that's going to be the strength of his approach, because this ukimta doesn't make so much sense that Ula said. So Ala Amarabba, Idi Dinafla Kashi Nisua. Okay, both cases are she was married to the first person. This has nothing to do with erusin at all. He agrees with Ula that what we're saying is she's safek married. So what's the difference between the case where she's alive and the case where she's dead? Why in the case where she's alive does everyone agree that she can sell it as she pleases? Well, because she's alive. It's her stuff. She just got it as a gift. She's safek nisua. So she's muchzeket b'ksafim because they went straight to her. He is a question mark because he's a shomer yabam. He hasn't done yibum with her yet. So in safek motzi midei vadai, that's why she gets the money. But the seifa, even though he's still a shomer yabam, and still right, or he's got a shomer yabam, he's still not sure if he has the money. But as soon as she dies, seifa demeita halalu be'in lirash v'halalu be'in lirash v'yachloku. Once she dies, her claim is already weaker because she's not alive anymore. Now it's a fight between her inheritors and his, right? Her family and his family. At that point, there's already going to be a debate. So what he's saying is basically remove her from the picture. She's the one who has a strong chazaka on whatever it is she inherited, or she got as a gift. But once she dies, and it's between the inheritors of her husband, her previous husband's family, the brother, and her original family, then already it's a toss-up. Safek, and that's why we're going to split. Again, the whole time we're trying to explain Beit Shammai, basically, right? Because he's the one who says Yachlok. Abai says, wait a minute. You're saying that Beit Shammai holds Ein Safek Motzimi De Vadai, right? She's Vadai in the first case, and that's why he's Safek. He doesn't get to claim anything. So you're saying Ein Safek Motzimi De Vadai, that if someone has a definitive claim and someone has a claim that's not definitive, unclear, so the unclear claim is going to get 0. Is that what you think? Well, we're going to bring a case where that's not what Beit Shammai says, that sometimes a safek can have certain rights and we'll get something. We had a house falling before on people and there was a question who died first, similar thing. But here it's about inheritance laws. House falls on him and his father. He doesn't have any money, but his father has money. Now, if his father dies first, then he inherits the father, let's say a minute before he dies, then he has money all of a sudden. Okay, again, his estate has money. Now, the issue is going to be that someone claims he owes them money. Now, if he has no money, then there's no money to pay back with. So if he died first, then he died penniless, and he has no money, and the Baal Chov has no claim because there's nothing to collect from. So, or alav al morishav, or on him and people who inherit him, either which way. We'll talk about the case, him and his father. It's all the same. It's just a matter of, who's who. He was supposed to pay his wife's k'tuba and a Baal Chov, somebody who he owed money to. Yorshei Av blame the people who inherit his father, right? His father's, they say, the guy died first, all the money's ours, right? So it's all ours. Right? The Baal Chov claims, hey, I get, right? Now, who's more vadai? The Yorshei Av are more vadai because they clearly inherited their father. The Baal Chov doesn't have any definitive claim. And yet, Beit Shammai omrim yachloku. Beit Hillel says, wherever the money is, right, which is obviously not in the hands of the Baal Chov, it gets to stay. But Beit Shammai says we split 50-50. So, you see. So they say, okay, no. That's not the reason. It's not because it's Safek and Vadai, and that's why they get 50%. It's because Kasavar Beit Shammai, this case is unique. If you have a star that you can collect, you have an IOU, it's as if you collected it already. So they're also muhzak. They're muhzak and they're muhzak, okay? Everybody has rights to that property, and that's why they split it 50-50. How do we know this? Minat Tamra, that this a star, that you have a document that says, I'm owed money. It's as if I already collected it. Well, we can learn it from this case. Ditnan. A sota loses her ketubah money if she ends up being guilty, right? She's a woman claimed of infidelity. She is supposed to drink the waters. If it proves she's wrong, she was in the wrong, she doesn't get her ketubah money at all. If she was proven right, then she could get her ketubah money. What if, in the event that he dies or divorces? What if the husband died before she drank the water? So Beit Shammai omrim notlot ketubatam be'enan shotem. They don't drink the water, but she gets the ketubah money. Okay, I see you're writing me accused of infidelity. Maybe I wasn't clear about that. She's accused of infidelity, and we don't know if she's really guilty or not. So Beit Shammai says, listen, she doesn't drink the waters because he's not alive anymore, and she gets her ketubah money. Okay, so that's what we're going to see, that shtaro me legavo ki kavoi dami, because otherwise, why should she get her ketubah money? She's safek, right? We don't know, was she with another man or not? Beit Hillel omrim o shotot o lo notlot ketubatan. Either she drinks or she doesn't get her ketubah money. So they said, what are you talking about, Beit Hillel? Oshotot, it's only when the husband brings the wife, the husband's dead. She can't drink the water. That's what the Torah says, Vileka, and he's not here anymore. So they say, no, that's not what Beit Hillel meant. And Beit Hillel really doesn't interest us, but we just have to understand it before we move on. Because they can't drink, they can't get their ketubah money. In other words, it's safek, okay? And therefore they can't. So now back to Beit Shammai though. How does Beit Shammai say they could get it? We don't know. Did she sleep with the man? Did she not? And how could we allow her then to get the money? Must be Sharon Gavot is as if you collected. So comes the Gemara and says, wait a minute. If that's the case, then we have, this is just parallel to the previous. So Abaye, when Abaye asked the question of Rabbah, why didn't he ask the question? Abaye said, how could you say Safek is not Motzi Midei Vadai according to Beit Shammai? We have the case of the house falling. Why didn't he say we have the case of the Sota? Dilma, so they say, Sota is a different case. Ketubah is unique. And this is a fascinating thing in light of other sugyot. Dilma Ketubah Shashani Mishum China. Ketubah of a woman is instituted to protect the woman. Why? Because if we didn't protect the woman might never want to get married. Now, this is funny because there's some Gemaras that always say women always want to get married. This sugya and other cases where the China comes up, some indicate that they needed to institute ketubah to protect the woman, to encourage her to get married. Women were worried to get married, that they wouldn't have any protection. This protects them, that in the event that he dies, he'll take care of her in the event of divorce. That already means that when they institute ketubah, they institute in a way that she could even collect it misafek. But that's a unique halacha of ketubah. That's why Abaye brought up the case of the house falling and not the case of the ketubah, because you can't necessarily learn it from there. Okay, we're going to stop here because the daf is long. We're going to stop here. We're going to finish this up tomorrow. Hopefully, it's Erev Pesach. We'll be able to get through tomorrow's daf fully tomorrow. Okay, have a great day, everyone. And hope your preparations for Pesach go well. We'll meet up tomorrow morning. Class will be as usual. As I said, the other classes are up if you want to hear them in advance. Have a great day.